Welcome to Isaiah. We're going to study end time events in Isaiah. We're going to look at these chapters, Isaiah 24, 25, 26, and 27, which are a prediction of the future. We've seen some of the future events in Isaiah, such as his focus on the millennium, but this is going to be a more comprehensive look at the end time events. I'm calling these chapters God's crystal ball. Here's an important statement from John MacArthur, because we're going to be focusing on Israel, which was Isaiah's focus. MacArthur said, foundational to any accurate understanding of the end, that is end times, is an accurate understanding of the future of Israel. It's very important. Israel is big. Israel is actually the focus of the Bible and the future. When we consider end time events, yes, we'll talk about the church in the future, but we will also focus greatly on Israel. Israel is in prophecy. Since Genesis 12:3, when God said, I will bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you, we have seen God fulfilling that promise. There are personal promises in this Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 12:1-3. God said to Abraham, I will make you a great nation. There are national promises, and I think this is one of the national promises. I will bless them that bless you, curse them that curse you. I will give you the land. That has not yet been fulfilled from the Euphrates to the Nile. Then there's universal promises in the Abrahamic covenant. Through your descendant, the Messiah, all people, all nations will be blessed. And that was fulfilled through Christ. Paul refers to that in Galatians 3. That is a universal promise. That does not take the place of the national promise. But here's one of the national promises. I will bless them that bless you. And when we think of the current war in Israel, Israel against many Islamic terrorist groups and nations, I think we are on the right side of that promise, and these other nations, such as Iran, is on the wrong side of that promise. For example, here's this news report. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said on Tuesday, this was the Tuesday after October 1, when Iran fired over 200 ballistic missiles toward Israel. So what did this advisor say, security advisor say? That U.S. naval destroyers joined Israeli air defense units in firing interceptors to shoot down inbound missiles, and these inbound missiles were from Iran. Plus, in this most recent response from Israel to Iran, Israel used U.S. F-35 stealth fighters on October the 26th as a retaliation. Israel's big. Israel is the focus of daily news today, 4,000 years after Genesis 12:3. On October 26, Israel, in its response to Iran, responded in 3 waves of aerial attacks. One wave destroyed air defense systems. Another wave of aircraft destroyed long-range missiles. And then another wave destroyed technology for future missiles. So here's Israel. Here's Israel right here. And here's Iran, who on October the 1st fired those ballistic missiles 1,000 miles here to Israel. Israel said, we will respond. On October 26th, they did. And in flying over Syria and Iraq, which are funded by Iran to be against Israel, And flying this 1,000-mile trip, they knocked out radars in Syria. They knocked out radars in Iraq. And then in those 3 waves of aerial attacks, they did this damage. So Israel is big in the Bible. Israel is in current events, and Israel has a future, according to prophecy. And I'm just going to survey these 3 chapters that Paul dedicates to the nation of Israel in Romans 9, 10, and 11. So Paul is defending the righteousness of God. This is a theodicy, a defense of the righteousness of God. And what he's doing here is he's saying the righteousness of God needs to be defended because Israel is attacking his righteousness, his justice. They were the chosen nation, but now they've been set aside, and the focus is on Gentiles. And so Paul thinks it's necessary to defend God's righteousness in relationship to Israel. In chapter 9, he looks back in the past and says God elected Israel in the past. That's Romans 9:4. Who are the Israelites? Who are Israelites? To whom pertains the adoption or election? In Isaiah 45:4, Isaiah called Israel God's elect. That's big, because God does not unelect those he elects. God elected them in the past. They're now under a temporary punishment because they rejected the Messiah. They have temporarily been set aside. That's the focus of chapter 10. Chapter 10 is the present. Look in chapter 10, verse 1. Brethren, Paul's writing to his brethren, his literal brethren, his race, the Jews. My heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. So Israel was mentioned in chapter 9. Israel is mentioned in chapter 10. Israel has been temporarily set aside. If you go to chapter 11, you'll see that he uses the olive tree to say that they have been cut off from the olive tree, or those Old Testament blessings, but they will be grafted back in. Look in Romans 11 and verse 24. First of all, look in Romans 11:1. I say, then, has God cast away his people? No. For I also am an Israelite. You see, he has mentioned Israel in every one of these chapters. And the statement here is God has not cast them away. He has only temporarily set them aside. Now, Romans 11:24. For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these, referring to Israel, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree? God is once more in the future going to graft them back into his blessings. Verse 25. For I would not, brethren, again, he's speaking specifically to Israel, Israeli brethren. For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. And then verse 26, and so all Israel shall be saved. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that those who died as unbelievers are going to be saved. But again, he's forecasting the future. In the future, Israel will be saved. So we see it in the book of Romans 9, 10, and 11. We also see it in Revelation. We're going to come back to Isaiah. But I want you to see the harmony in Scripture of these end time events. Revelation 1:1. The revelation of Jesus Christ. The revelation, the unveiling. But we get our English word apocalyptic from this word in Revelation 1:1, the revelation or the apocalypse. And what John does in Revelation, he lays out the future of mankind. And it harmonizes with what Paul told us in Romans 9:10 and 11. We're going to see it harmonizes with Isaiah 24, 25, 26, and 27. What John is giving us here is the apocalyptic end of human history, or the catastrophic end of mankind. But it's all according to God's plan. Look in Revelation 1:19. Here's the table of contents for the book of Revelation. Revelation 1:19. Write the things which you have seen. That's chapter 1. So what did John see in chapter 1? He saw Christ's death, burial, resurrection, and his ascension, and Christ in that ascended, glorified body. That's chapter 1. Let's go on in verse 19. Number 2, and the things which are, as a church age, that's the 7 churches in Revelation 2 and 3 who are representative of churches throughout this age, the things that are. And then the last part of Revelation 1:19 says, and the things which shall be hereafter. So what we have here is, in Revelation 4-19, you have a description of the tribulation period. You have the rapture right here. You have 7 years of tribulation. And again, this pertains to Israel. This is Jeremiah 30, which describes this tribulation period as the time of Jacob's trouble. This is where God is chastising Israel for rejecting the Messiah. John covers this in Revelation 4 to Revelation 19, which is the second coming of Christ to earth. Then you have Revelation 20. You see the chronology here. I'm going to go to Revelation 20. The tribulation period ends with the second coming, or Revelation 19, beginning in verse 11. This is when the Battle of Armageddon takes place in Jerusalem, where the Antichrist and his nations gather together and Christ defeats them. But that is followed by Revelation 20, the 1,000-year reign of Christ and the great white throne judgment, which you have at the end of Revelation 20. And then in Revelation 21 and 22, you have eternity. So there is this forecast of the future. Israel had a past, got elected. God does not unelect those he elects. Israel presently, right here, is in unbelief. They have been set aside temporarily from the blessings of God, spiritual blessings, which they will experience right here. And then when the church is raptured out, God is going to focus on Israel again in the time of Jacob's trouble. And when Christ comes back the second time, they will not reject him this time. They will look up, as Zechariah chapter 14 says. They will see the nail prints in his hand as he ascends in the second coming. And they will realize they crucified the Messiah. They will accept him as the Messiah. A nation shall be born in a day, Isaiah says. You'll have the 1,000-year reign of Christ on the throne of David in Jerusalem, not only over Israel, but over all nations. Then you have new heaven, new Jerusalem coming down onto the new earth, according to Revelation 21 and 22. So there is the future as laid out. in the book of Revelation. So what we are going to do, we're going to look at how Isaiah lines up with what Paul taught, what John taught here, and we're also going to look at what Jesus said in the Olivet Discourse, which was his end time sermon. We're going to see how Isaiah lines up with it. Isaiah 24 is going to talk about the tribulation period. Isaiah 25, the first part of it, is going to talk about the kingdom. And then in Isaiah 25 and 26, he's going to talk about eternity. So all of this is showing how these are God's outlined events for the future, and they are in harmony. And so we'll look at that next time in our next lecture.